Florida is almost always associated with heat, beaches, and endless sunshine. But in one small corner of the state, that image completely falls apart. In the northwestern part of Florida, near the Alabama border, cold air can drop low enough to turn rain into snow. Roads that are usually dry suddenly turn white, rooftops get covered in ice, and the Gulf of Mexico coastline becomes a strange sight. Warm ocean waters side by side with freezing air. This phenomenon isn't a myth or a camera trick, but the real result of an intense meeting between Arctic air and Gulf moisture. For a brief moment, Florida takes on a whole new face, and that's exactly what makes the story so unforgettable. Destin sits along the western coast of the Florida Panhandle, a region that, geographically, can still be reached by cold air from winter systems moving over the Gulf of Mexico. Even so, snowfall in Destin remains rare and very light. During extreme cold weather events, like the one recorded in early 2025, Destin experienced only a light accumulation of snow, measuring between 0.1 and 0.3 inches. The snow here typically doesn't pile up much. What usually appears is a thin layer on flat surfaces like car rooftops, grass, or sidewalks, and it often melts within hours once the sun comes up. Destin ranks as the least intense city on this list, not because it never sees snow, but because the snowfall that does occur is minimal and short-lived. It serves as a logical starting point before the story moves inland across the Florida Panhandle, where snow accumulations become more significant. Fort Walton Beach is still part of the coastal stretch of the Florida Panhandle, located just east of Destin. Its position makes it slightly more exposed to cold air moving down from the north, but it's still not quite ideal for heavy snowfall. As a result, snow events in Fort Walton Beach usually fall into the light category. During extreme cold events, including the one documented in 2025, the city saw light snowfall in the range of 0.2 to 0.4 inches. This snow was visible on flat surfaces, car rooftops, grassy areas, and open spaces, but rarely lasted long. Once the sun rose, the thin white layer quickly melted, leaving wet surfaces behind. Unlike cities farther inland, Fort Walton Beach doesn't experience significant accumulation. Life in the city continues as usual, with no major road closures. On this list, Fort Walton Beach ranks just above Destin, still on the light side, but consistent enough to be captured on camera and recognized clearly as snow, not just fleeting flurries. Navarre is located along the coast of Santa Rosa County, on the same general line as Destin and Fort Walton Beach, but its position makes it slightly more open to cold air sweeping down from the north. This factor allows Navarre to occasionally record snowfall that's a bit more noticeable than in neighboring beach towns, though it's still considered light. During extreme cold weather events, including the one that occurred in 2025, Navarre saw snow accumulation between 0.3 and 0.5 inches. This thin layer of snow appeared on residential yards, grassy areas, and vehicle surfaces. In some spots, the snow managed to stick around a bit longer than in Destin and Fort Walton Beach, especially in the early morning hours when temperatures were still low. However, Navarre is still not an area where snowfall causes major disruptions. There were no major road closures, and daily life mostly went on as usual. Panama City Beach was never built with cold weather in mind, let alone snow. The city operates under the assumption that warm temperatures will dominate year-round. That's why, during the extreme cold snap in early 2025, residents responded more with confusion than panic. The snowfall was described as light accumulation, generally under 1 inch, with many visual reports showing about ½ an inch or even less. It wasn't thick, but it was enough to leave a visible white coating before melting away a few hours later. The most interesting reality appeared in the small details. Schools remained open, roads weren't closed, but people postponed their morning routines simply because the ground felt unfamiliar. Not because it was dangerous, just because snow is something this city hardly ever sees. Panama City is located slightly farther inland than Panama City Beach, and even that short distance made a noticeable difference during the extreme cold event in early 2025. Snowfall here stuck more consistently than it did along the coast, especially on grassy areas and in residential neighborhoods. Reported accumulation generally fell into the light to moderate category, with estimates around 0.5 inches and approaching 1 inch in some spots. Interestingly, many residents described the moment as the first time they'd seen the city feel quiet in the morning, not because of an emergency, but because people simply slowed down. There were no emergency protocols, no snow equipment, just a city moving more slowly than usual, dealing with something that almost never happens in Florida. Niceville, located in Okaloosa County, isn't a large city, but its slightly inland location makes cold weather feel more persistent compared to the beach towns nearby. During the extreme cold event in early 2025, snow didn't fall in dramatic fashion. It arrived gradually, but steadily enough to leave a light coating on yards and parking lots, generally under 1 inch. What's more interesting is that Niceville is known as a military suburban town due to its proximity to Eglin Air Force Base. Many residents are used to a structured morning routine, so even a small change, like the roads turning white, was enough to disrupt that rhythm. Not because it was dangerous, but because this town has no real language for dealing with snow. In Niceville, snow isn't something to marvel at. It's a quiet inconvenience, just enough to alter the way the city moves for a few hours. Pace is the kind of town where even saying winter can feel like an overstatement. Cold weather here usually means Florida-style chilly, light jackets, foggy mornings, and warm afternoons. But January 2025 broke the pattern in a way that couldn't be ignored. Snow fell steadily enough to cover grass, cars, and rooftops, not just drifting through the air, but actually sticking. For a place like Pace, it wasn't about how many inches fell, but about the simple fact that snow touched the ground and stayed there for a few hours. The city's reaction was pretty low-key. There was no mass panic. Main roads slowed down, schools took the day off, but socially it felt more like a collective surprise than a crisis. Pace didn't suddenly turn into a winter town, but that one day was enough to leave a lasting memory. In Pace, the snow of 2025 wasn't a disaster, and it wasn't a celebration either. It was more like a footnote in the story of a town that's usually warm. Tallahassee is a city that's familiar enough with winter to know it's possible. The weather can get seriously cold by Florida standards, but actual snow is extremely rare. Only a few times in the past century has it really made an appearance. On January 21st to 22nd, 2025, Tallahassee saw real ground-sticking snow, about 1.9 inches over 2 days, one of the highest recorded snowfalls in the area since the 1950s. That 1.9 inches might sound small, but for a city that's used to light flurries or the occasional icy patch, it was enough to coat the grass and smaller roads in white, and even push some locals to dig out gloves or step outside to snap photos. Tallahassee doesn't throw snow festivals, snow itself becomes the event. It wasn't a big production, it was a rare occurrence that made the city pause and go, okay, this is Aishwari, that is this. Worth remembering. Crestview, located in Okaloosa County in the western Florida Panhandle, sits about 30 miles north of the Gulf of Mexico, far enough inland to miss out on the coastal warmth that protects many beach towns. This location often makes Crestview colder than places like Pace or Destin, and it's even earned the nickname Icebox of Florida long before 2025. Snowfall here during the January 2025 winter storm was real and significant, with accumulation ranging from 6 to 9 inches, some of the deepest recorded anywhere in Florida during that storm. So when the winter storm hit in January 2025, Crestview was right in the path of maximum impact. Snow fell steadily, piling up to between 6 and 9 inches, ranking as one of the heaviest snowfalls in Florida at the time. There were no official festivals, no gimmicks, just a daily routine that moved slower than usual. In Crestview, the snow of 2025 felt like something that finally made perfect sense. DeFuniak Springs is fascinating precisely because it was originally imagined as a winter town, an ironic concept for Florida. Back in the late 19th century, it was developed as a winter retreat for people from the Midwest, complete with historic architecture and a tidy layout around Lake DeFuniak that looked more like a northern village. So when real snow arrived in January 2025, with accumulation around 7 to 8 inches, it felt as if the city's old identity had suddenly come back to life. Snow blanketed the circular path around the lake, a space usually known for quiet strolls, making the whole town look more like a postcard from Ohio than a scene from the South. There wasn't an official snow festival, but the city's setting already carried the story. DeFuniak Springs was once meant for people escaping the cold, and somehow, the cold found its way back. Here, the 2025 snowfall wasn't just a weather anomaly, it was a rare moment when the town's original design suddenly felt right again. Moving northeast from DeFuniak Springs, the Florida Panhandle landscape begins to shift, and Marianna feels like its quieter continuation. This small city in Jackson County sits near the Alabama and Georgia borders, far from any coastal warmth. Its location nearly always lands it on the list of Florida's coldest towns, and January 2025 made that clear. Snow fell steadily and accumulated around 4 to 6 inches, enough to truly slow the town down. But what made Marianna stand out wasn't just the snow, it was the contrast. Beneath the surface lies the Florida Caverns State Park, home to the state's only natural limestone cave system. So for a moment, Marianna became something surreal. Snow on top, caverns below. There were no festivals, no crowds. In Marianna, the snowfall didn't feel like a surprise. It felt like the logical outcome of a town that's long felt halfway out of Florida. A little farther east from Marianna lies Chipley, a small town in Washington County whose location regularly exposes it to colder panhandle air more intensely than any coastal city. In 2025, Chipley received about 3 to 5 inches of snow, a thin but clear layer that covered yards, sidewalks, and rooftops, just enough to bring people outside to capture the rare sight. What's interesting is that Chipley has a unique history with extreme weather. The town sits near an old railway line that once served as a key transportation route, and archival records show that Panhandle residents have long dealt with winter oddities like frost or light snow. But even so, the snowfall in 2025 still felt special. Like the towns before it, Chipley didn't throw a festival or make a big deal out of it. The pace just slowed. For Chipley, this snow wasn't a major disruption. It was a rare reminder that the Panhandle, though quiet, still has a few surprises up its sleeve. Heading slightly northwest from Chipley brings you to Molino, a small town in Escambia County near the Alabama border. This year delivered a real surprise. Snowfall accumulated between 2 and 4 inches, enough to cover front yards and make some roads slick, a rare sight in a place that usually only sees a light frost at best. What makes Molino especially interesting is its location as the gateway to Blackwater River State Forest, one of the largest forests in the Panhandle. Snow blanketing the tall pine trees created a scene straight out of a winter movie, starkly contrasting with the tropical Florida most people expect. Pensacola sits at the far northwestern tip of Florida, right along the Gulf of Mexico and near the Alabama border. This city often surprises people by being one of the few places in the Sunshine State that actually sees snow. While Florida is known for its sunny skies and white sand beaches, Pensacola occasionally gets a light dusting of snow in the winter, especially when cold northern air meets the Gulf's humid atmosphere. Snow here is rare and usually light, but the event always draws attention from both locals and visitors. What makes it even more unique is Pensacola's identity as a military town, home to a historic naval base. When snow falls, the base transforms into a rare winter scene in the deep south. Pensacola proves that even in Florida, winter surprises can happen, adding a layer of charm and unexpected character to the city. Milton, a small town near Pensacola, made Florida weather history when it recorded nearly 10 inches of snowfall, an astonishing amount for a state typically associated with warmth. Located just about 30 minutes north of Pensacola, Milton became the center of attention for an accumulation that rarely happens in this part of the country. This kind of snowfall usually occurs when cold air from the north collides with Gulf moisture, creating the perfect storm for heavy snow. Overnight, the town transformed into a winter wonderland. Rooftops, trees, and roads were blanketed in thick white. With its record-setting snowfall close to 10 inches, Milton became living proof that even the deep south can experience a spectacular winter, if only once in a great while.